every now and then, I need to stay active in the community. Just because I've got my signatures doesn't relinquish me from my responsibility to participate in just about any and every event that I hear about. You know, and the important thing for me is that folks need to understand that my participation in the community doesn't end after November 3rd when I win the election. I believe it's incumbent upon any public office holder to be out there. If you're doing something that gives you cause to wonder whether or not you should participate in a community event,
right,
then you should probably look at what it is that you're doing. If you're ashamed of something or you've made a mistake and you're not humble enough to apologize, because we're all going to make mistakes.
Sure.
I'm going to stick my foot in it several times, I'm sure. I've done it out on the campaign trail. And the important thing to do is to admit your mistakes and move forward. And so I plan on being in the community, being there to answer questions, listen to concerns, and make sure that I create action items out of those concerns so that we can get things solved. And you know, there's a huge disconnect right now, and I know that you'll probably get to it, but the parents have made a mass exodus from participating in school board meetings because they've been made to feel invalid.
Off and shut down. I
yes,
mean,
they're not listening. Nobody's making anything out of what they're bringing to them, and so it amazes me that if you just sit there and listen, everybody just wants to be heard, and they want to know that you're paying attention. And so you need to be out there in the community in order to get it. If you're just going to sit behind your computer and wait for emails, all you're going to get is the ugly.
Right.
And it's going to be the real ugly. So you should really be out there and try to diffuse those kind of situations and listen to the concerns. It's been heartbreaking on the campaign trail to listen to some of the issues that have, sorry.
It's okay. Things that they bring up.
Yeah. So special needs kids.
Yeah.
Right? My youngest daughter, the 17-year-old, she I don't want to say still is, because she manages herself and she operates completely independently, but she used to have a 504, an IEP, all the bells and whistles.
My son does as well.
She's autistic. And to hear some of the stories that parents tell me about the total disconnect between the administration and taking care of their children now. I mean, I was fortunate. My ex-wife, the woman that I was with at the time that Kylie was coming up, she was a paraprofessional for autistic children. So she knew the words, she knew the process, she knew what to say and how to do in order to make sure that our daughter got the attention that she needed. A lot of parents don't, and they have to take what the district gives them.
That's right.
And some of the stories that I've heard just breaks my heart, because these kids, they're our most,
It's okay.
they're our most valuable treasure.
Of course.
And their innocence is the most finite resource that they will ever have. And we currently have an education system in place, and I'm not saying completely and 100%, but there are those elements in our education system that are taking away from their innocence and that are destroying their ability to excel. And we need to stop that.
That's right.
And I'm sorry if I got off on a tangent.
No, not at all. My son has an IEP. He had a 504, and then he had an IEP, and honestly, they wanted to do their meeting, once-a-year meeting, twice now at the end of the school year.
What good did that do?
Thank you. So finally this January, after December, I said, can we have it in January when we regroup after the break? Like, I need him to have the second half of his year. Like, we need to talk about some things, and you know, and not to the extent of what your daughter's needs are. It's a more emotional, behavioral, you know. But nonetheless, I mean, kids who have those plans, they have them for a reason, and it seems like it's more of a nuisance for them to deal with it. And I've had it for both my boys, so for 8 years throughout the schooling, and they just don't seem to want to really put any effort into, like, we have a meeting, they write up a thing, they send me a copy, and then it just doesn't seem like there's a lot of follow through, you know. And it's hard as a parent because you're not allowed to go to school anymore. Like, I used to be able to go into grade school and middle school. I used to be able to pop in and see and be a room mom, and you can't do that in high school. You can't go in at all.
And that needs to be fixed. Yeah,
I mean, that's just, first of all, I don't know why we don't have cameras. And we have cameras at tutor time. We have cameras at Walmart. We have cameras. I mean, we literally have cameras everywhere in the world, including every parking lot of Fry's or Albertsons. I mean, at the grocery store, we have cameras. For car theft, you think at some point somebody's gonna be like, we probably should have cameras. And what's the privacy issue? I mean, your kid is with all the other 32 kids, so there's no privacy there.
Right.
And I mean, if the teacher is doing everything by the book and the way they're supposed to properly, what's the issue there?
Right.
I just don't understand why we can't just go on Google like they do for the pet resort, right? When you're in Cabo and your pet's at the pet resort, like I have people I know who do that, which is awesome, I guess, if you have a pet. And you can see your pet playing in the, I mean, we do it for pets. It just doesn't, so that they're not abused, right? So you can see and talk to them and check in on them. Do you think the kids would have that luxury given to them by the people running their lives for 12 years?
Well, I would think that there's got to, I understand some of the legal challenges. I've heard a lot of the concerns and the complaints. It usually falls in line of access.
What are the complaints
So
about that?
if
I don't
I'm the parent of
understand.
Tommy and I want to log in and watch the classroom, well, in the process of watching Tommy, I also see Jenny and Billy and Skip and Mary. Those aren't my children. Do I have the right to be able to see those children?
I mean, you can get on their TikTok and see them
well,
at
no,
night.
I understand. I understand.
I mean, I'm not arguing with you,
but this
I'm
is
just
the
saying.
argument that people make, and so,
That's ridiculous.
or the other argument is maybe I don't have any children in the classroom, but I found a way to have access to it. And so now I'm watching a camera full of children and I have
Okay.
no business watching. And so that's
I
why
see that.
I'm going to say that we need to understand these challenges and develop the process.
But I mean, that is such a
To remove it.
far-fetched possibility. It's not impossible.
Right.
Because people find ways to do it all. But I mean, there's a whole wide world web full of kids at your fingertips if you're that person. And they have cameras in the hallways. So, I mean, that's a short leap to the classroom where it's important. I don't know. I know that's
I think it's
something
definitely
may not
something that we
happen,
need to take a
but-
look at. I mean, I would prefer that the solution is getting the parents back in the classroom.
Or that.
Whether it's an organization like Watchdogs, I would encourage you to look those up. Dads of Great Students.
Okay.
It's a program that's national that encourages dads to belong to this organization. They get some training and they go and they volunteer their time at the schools. I was a member of Watchdogs up in Colorado, and we went to the elementary schools. And the concept behind Watchdogs is that there are so many broken families now that don't have dads.
Right.
They're missing the male element in the house. And so we introduce these fathers that are going to go into the classrooms, interact with all the children, go out to the playground, interact with all the children, go to lunch with the kids, spend their day or half the day, play the crossing guard, and they're another set of eyes in the classroom.
Do we have that in Arizona?
Not
So it's not
not very
nationwide.
wide. Well, it's nationwide. It's just that
Just
it's
not
up to
that.
each school to take it on. There's a slight cost associated with it because
Okay.
there's training and uniforms that the dads wear and everything for identification purposes. But last time I looked, and I might be misspeaking here, I believe there's an elementary school in Deer Valley School District, Terramar,
Okay.
that had it last time I looked. I don't know if it's still being used because when COVID came around, it kind of blew everything
Right.
up. And I don't know how many folks have come back to what they were doing before then. But I really enjoyed Watchdogs. And then there's been a big cry out in the community from some of the meetings that I've went to that why aren't we utilizing our grandparents?
Right.
Why aren't we allowing them to come back in and read to the kids or participate in some of the lower grades where they could actually help the teachers and interact with the children? That would accomplish so many things.
On both sides.
On
for
both
the
sides.
grandparents too.
Yeah. Yep. Give them
Yeah.
something to do, give back to the
Yes.
community. There's so many retired teachers,
Right.
don't want anything to do with the daily
Retired
grind.
artists.
Yep.
I
Retired
mean,
firefighters,
yes,
policemen, everybody that wants
so
to serve.
valuable.
So we need to look at those kind of things, and getting the concept that parents aren't allowed on campus is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's a public
I know.
campus
It's
paid
like
with public tax
you're
dollars with your children in it.
Crossing some line when
Yeah.
you go in, it's so like rigid, you know, and you can barely even ask to go past the front desk for anything. It's like very off-putting as a parent, you know.
Well, and that mindset and that behavior speaks to something that I'm constantly reminding the Deer Valley School Board of when I speak in front of them, in that the choices that you're making and the processes and policies you're putting in place need to be presented in a manner that's beyond reproach. And when you start doing things that make it look like you're acting in the shadows, even if it's with the most innocent of intentions, you're giving off that vibe like you've got something to hide.
Yeah.
And if you give off that vibe like you've got something to hide with the current political atmosphere that's out there, you're not making friends.
Right.
And you're creating conspiracies and you're creating whispers in the shadows. And when we need to get away from that, and that's one of the things that I'm focusing on is transparency in my campaign. Is
so
that
important.
I mean, when I get in there, we need to pull the curtains back, and if that's going to make roaches scramble, then I'm sorry for that. I'm hoping that all we're going to do is be able to change how we execute and develop the transparency, and that there's nothing bad to see, and then everybody can have this aha moment,
Right.
and we can all move
Relax
forward as a
and
team and get things done.
No, our kids are taken care of.
Yep.
And Sherry Superior, she's running for superintendent of public instruction out here, so I know you know Sherry.
Oh, I know Sherry.
Yeah, so I am a big fan of hers. And I don't always endorse or say who I'm going to vote for out loud, but I'm voting for Sherry. That I have no problem saying that. I just love her as a person. She's a mom. She's a strong business person. She comes from Israel. She was in the military. Like, her background is very diverse. So that's somebody I assume you can work with. And we hope that happens for both of you, because I think we just need to move in a direction with stronger people that have these interests of our kids, your own kids, my kids in mind. So is there anything else you wanted to add that we haven't touched on that you might want to, I don't know, share or get out? Or let's talk about your website. It is
Paul for DVUSD.com.
Paul
the word for
DVUSD.com. And we're going to put this up later too.
Okay.
And you can find him on Facebook.
Yep.
So check out his posts.
Paul Carver.
Paul Carver.
Yep.
And we will probably just be catching up with you around town as we have been. I'm sure we'll see you.
great.
You live in my area, so you'll be around, I'm sure, and in my district at our meetings, which I will be making more readily now, more regularly, I should say. I am a poll observer. I just got training, so I'm excited
Outstanding.
about
We need
that.
more of those.
And
Yep.
a PC come November.
Sweet.
I know, I got to learn more about that. So I'm trying to get involved. Paul's getting involved.
Yep.
I highly recommend, if you have any amount of time, half an hour a week at a time, get involved somehow. You do it small, and then you start doing it more, and then you're on a school board. So that's how that goes, I think. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was nice talking to you and getting to know you a little bit more.
Thank you.
I'm sure everybody appreciates that. And thank you all for tuning in again with me. This is American Perspective with Patriot Mom 007, and we look forward for you to tune in again. Thanks.